Okay, in part three of this module on leading change, I want to talk about two simple things. One is the nature of change and where this comes from in terms of helping people to successfully make change. And secondly, I want to talk about resiliency and what that is and how it relates to people successfully making change. So let's start out with the nature of change and what helps people to be successful in changing versus what keeps people from making the changes they need to make in life. And really, change and people's success in making change is all about a balance between people's capabilities and the challenges that they're facing. And what I mean is there's this balance that goes on about we need or want to make a change in our life, and we have a certain level of ability and willingness to move towards that change, to make that change in our life. But there tend to be some sort of challenges or obstacles in our way often that keep us from making the change. So if you even take the simplest example of trying to diet and lose weight, right, which most of us have done at some point in our life, uh, it's a balance between, do we have the ability to be healthier, eat healthier, exercise more, and do we have the willingness to do what it takes, compared to the challenge and the obstacle of actually doing it, needing to, go out there and do the exercise and go through that pain and effort and buy the food that we need to eat and eat this restricted diet that we may not be very excited to eat, and the cost associated with that, the time associated with all those things that we need to do to be healthy. There's challenges and obstacles in the way, and there's certain level of ability and willingness we have to make the change. And if those are out of balance, we have an issue. So if we have more ability and willingness to make the change than we do negative challenges and obstacles in the way, then we're likely to be successful in making that change. But when the challenges and obstacles in our way that are facing us and keeping us from making the change, when they're greater than our ability or our willingness to take the action towards that change, we're not likely to have success making the change. So change is this balance between our capabilities and the challenges and the obstacles that we're facing right now as to whether we're really going to successfully make that change or not. So there's this constant tug of war going on between, I'm trying to make this change, or we want to make this change, but these other things are kind of pulling us away, saying, no, it's too hard, it's too difficult, don't do it. And who's going to win? That's where this nature of change and our success in making change comes from. The second thing I want to talk about is this concept of resiliency. What is resilience, and how does that relate to managing change or leading change? Resilience is basically just our ability to adjust to changes in our life, right? To what level do we have an ability to adjust to change, to adapt to changes that are going on around us? And everybody has a different level of resilience or ability to adjust to change. And throughout our lives, there are times when we have more resiliency and less resiliency. And I'm sure you can all relate to people perhaps yourself, who say, yeah, I don't like change. I'm not a big fan of change. I don't enjoy it. It makes me stressed, anxious, fearful, whatever, right? So people have this different idea of how well they enjoy change and how well they adjust to change. And that comes back down to this concept of resilience. And resilience is actually kind of a skill set that can be developed that helps you to adapt better to change. There are actually generally 5 characteristics of a resilient person. What makes somebody resilient and being able to adapt to change better? 5 things. First is, resilient people tend to be positive. They tend to be optimistic about things, that yes, this is going to be okay. Yes, we can make it. Yes, I can do this. Makes sense that a positive, optimistic person is going to probably be more resilient and respond more positively to change. Second characteristic of a resilient person is that they tend to be focused. So they can focus enough to actually make a change and follow it through to completion and keep doing it, right? So resilient people tend to be focused, have a certain level of focus. Third characteristic of resilient people is they tend to be flexible. So when changes come around, things change, and you say, oh, well, now we need to do this, and now we need to go there and do it this way. They say, sure, yeah, that's fine. I can do that. Yep, we can do things differently. They're flexible. Makes sense, right? Flexible implies that you're adaptable to change. Fourth characteristic of resilient people is they tend to be organized. and therefore can figure out a way and a process and approach that they're going to take to successfully making a change. And the last characteristic of a resilient person is they tend to be proactive. Instead of waiting to the last second to do something or get it done or do what they need to do, they proactively make a plan and do those things over time. And obviously that makes the change process easier and less stressful as well. So as you're looking at these 5 characteristics of resilient people, you can probably identify some of these in yourself and say, oh yeah, I tend to be pretty good at that, or no, nope, that's not a strength of mine, right? And that's typical of most people. But the key is identifying this in yourself and thinking about ways that you can develop your resilience in some of these areas, and then thinking about your team or the people you're trying to have an influence on to help them change. How resilient are they? In which areas are they resilient? Are there things you can do to help develop their resilience? Are there things you can do that can predict where your team or individuals are going to have a hard time adapting to change, and what can you proactively do to help them get through that change? This is why it's important to know about, think about resilience as in terms of yourself, your current team, how you're recruiting future people onto your team, and it'll help you to be a better leader of change.